I still remember the first day I saw Era. Not because she did something extraordinary, but because she existed in a way that was impossible to forget. It was the second semester of university, and I was one of those quiet students who sat near the last rows, avoiding attention. She, on the other hand, walked in as if she carried sunlight on her shoulders. There was something about the way she entered a room. She didn't try to be noticed, yet everyone looked at her. I didn't fall in love instantly. Love is not a lightning strike, at least not for me. It was more like a slow sunrise, the kind you don't realize is happening until the whole sky changes color. We were assigned to the same group for a psychology research project. At first, she was just another classmate, a polite girl with soft brown eyes, neat handwriting, and a voice that always sounded like she was afraid of hurting someone even with words. But as days went on, something shifted. She remembered small things about people, someone's favorite snack, someone's stress, someone's birthday. She remembered things about me too. "Zion, you like tea without sugar, right?" she asked one day, handing me a cup during our library work session. I don't know why that small detail felt like someone had just placed a warm hand on my heart, but it did. Our conversations grew longer. We talked about assignments, then movies, then fears, then dreams. She told me she wanted to start a small counseling center one day because she believed listening was a healing power. I told her I wanted to write a book, a script, anything, because words were the only thing that felt like home to me. "Maybe one day I'll read something you write," she had said with a smile. That smile became the most dangerous thing I ever fell for. People started teasing us, not in a cruel way, but in the way friends tease two people who seem to fit naturally. And I didn't deny it. A part of me believed that maybe slowly she could feel something too. But there were cracks, small cracks in the glass of my hope that I pretended not to see. She was warm, but she kept a part of herself hidden. Sometimes during our study sessions, her phone would light up with a message, and she would excuse herself, walking away to talk in a voice different from the one she used with anyone else. Softer, more careful, almost emotional. When she returned, her smile looked a little forced, like she had tucked away a part of her inside her pocket. One evening, I finally asked, "Who is it you're always talking to?" She blinked, then looked down at her notes. "Just a friend. Just a friend." Those two words became the beginning of my quiet heartbreak. Still, the friendship grew, maybe because I never expressed what I truly felt. I didn't want to lose her by confessing something she might not be ready to hear. So I loved her silently, in the spaces between our conversations, in the walks across campus, in the times she laughed at my silly jokes. The year went by, and graduation approached faster than feelings could be sorted. On the last week of university, she seemed distracted. Her phone rang more often. She spoke less. Sometimes she stared into the distance, as if calculating a decision she wasn't ready to share. The last day arrived, filled with smiles, photographs, and promises to stay in touch. But with her, there was something different, a heaviness that didn't match the celebration around us. We were standing near the fountain outside the auditorium when she suddenly said, "Zion, do you believe people are meant for someone specific?" I was caught off guard. "I don't know," I replied quietly. "But I believe some people come into our lives and change everything." She lowered her eyes. "You changed a lot for me. You made this year easier." That sentence should have made me happy. Instead, it scared me because it sounded like a goodbye. Before I could ask anything more, she looked straight at me, her expression softer than ever, and whispered, "Life is about to take me somewhere far. I hope you'll understand someday." It felt like a door closing, slowly but firmly. I wanted to ask her what she meant. Was she leaving? Was something wrong? Who was the man behind those secret phone calls? But I didn't ask. Maybe I was afraid of the truth. She walked away that day, leaving me with more questions than answers. Leaving behind the scent of her perfume in the air and the weight of unspoken words in my chest. After graduation, she disappeared from campus, groups, gatherings, everything. She didn't text. She didn't call. She didn't respond to my messages except once, when she simply wrote, "I'm fine. Thank you for checking." And that was it. For 2 years, I carried her memory like a closed book I didn't know how to open again. I tried focusing on work, on writing, on life. But every time someone asked me about love, I smiled awkwardly and thought of her. Of the girl who walked into my life and then walked out without an explanation. I didn't know where she went. I didn't know who she chose. I didn't know why she left the way she did. All I knew was this. I loved her, but she was never mine. And sometimes that truth hurt more than heartbreak itself. I thought the story ended there. But fate, it turns out, was only preparing the first chapter. Because 2 years later, I received a message that turned my world upside down. 2 years had passed since the last time I saw Era. 2 long years in which I learned to collect the scattered pieces of myself and arrange them into something that resembled a functioning life. I threw myself into work, made new acquaintances, and smiled when life required me to. But somewhere inside, a part of me remained untouched, as if frozen in the moment she walked away. Then one ordinary evening, while I sat at my desk editing a client's article, my phone buzzed. I ignored it at first. But the sound came again, persistent. When I finally picked up my phone, I saw a name on the screen I had trained myself not to search anymore. Era. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. It felt unreal, like some ghost from a forgotten chapter had suddenly materialized in my room. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened the message. Zion, I'm getting married. Will you come? My heart dropped so suddenly that I felt physically light for a moment, as if gravity itself had shifted. I read the message again, then again, and again. Married. The word echoed inside my mind, bouncing against memories I had buried under layers of silence. I felt a strange mix of emotions, sadness, surprise, disbelief, and an odd kind of emptiness. I had always known she was never mine, but knowing something and facing it were 2 different kinds of pain. I stared at the message for what felt like hours. The phone screen dimmed twice, and each time I tapped to keep it alive, as if letting it go dark would somehow make the message disappear. Was this why she disappeared? Was this why she kept distance? Was this why she left without explanations? A part of me had suspected there was someone else, the voice she used on the phone, the warmth she saved for someone other than me. But seeing it confirmed, it felt like a wound reopening. I typed a reply. Congratulations. Deleted it. I'm happy for you. Deleted it. I don't think I can. Deleted that too. Every sentence felt wrong. Too cold, too desperate, too emotional, too distant. What was the right way to respond to the girl you once loved telling you she was marrying someone else? Finally, I wrote, if it means something to you, I'll be there. I stared at the message for a long time before pressing send. I wasn't sure why I agreed. Maybe because some part of me still wanted closure. Maybe because I didn't want her last memory of me to be silent resentment. Or maybe, like always, I couldn't say no to her. Her reply came instantly, almost as if she had been waiting. Thank you, Zion. It means a lot. Those words hurt more than the news itself. The days leading up to the wedding felt heavier than they should have. I tried to convince myself that I was simply going to support a friend, nothing more. But at night, when the world was quiet and my mind had no distractions, I felt the truth pressing against my chest. I wasn't going to her wedding as a friend. I was going as a reminder, to myself, that she had chosen someone else. Her wedding invitation arrived 2 days before the event, delivered by a courier in a white envelope. My hands felt cold as I opened it. It was beautiful, gold-edged, elegant, printed with her full name. And beneath it, the groom's name. I stared at it for a long time. He wasn't someone I knew. He wasn't someone from our university. He wasn't someone from her friend circle. A completely unfamiliar name. A part of me felt relieved. Another part felt even more defeated. That evening, I sat in my room, invitation card on the table, thinking of the girl who had once become the center of my quiet world. I wondered if she had ever imagined a future with me, even for a moment. Or had she always been walking towards someone else, someone who wasn't me? I didn't know. But one thing was clear. The girl who once made me believe in soft possibilities was now stepping into a forever I wasn't part of. The day of the wedding arrived faster than I expected. I wore a formal suit, nothing too flashy, nothing too dull. The drive to the hall felt unusually long, even though the location wasn't far. My chest tightened with every passing minute. When I reached the venue, the hall was decorated beautifully. White roses, golden lights, soft music. Guests were seated, whispering, laughing, adjusting their clothes. But beneath the surface, something felt off. A strange tension hung in the air. I expected to see the groom standing proudly on stage, smiling and receiving congratulations. But the stage was empty. The groom was missing. I frowned. Maybe he was busy in the back, maybe there was some delay. I found a seat near the corner where I could stay unnoticed. Within minutes, Era's mother walked past, looking worried. Her father paced near the entrance, talking on the phone urgently. Guests looked around, confused. Then a friend leaned to another and whispered loudly enough for people around to hear. "Why hasn't the groom arrived yet?" A ripple of uneasiness spread through the hall. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Just then, the main entrance opened abruptly, and a man ran inside breathless, holding a phone in his hand. I turned, along with everyone else. He shouted, "Era, she got married in the court this morning." Silence fell over the hall. For a moment, no one processed what he had said. Then chaos erupted. Her mother gasped, nearly collapsing. Her father shouted at the messenger, demanding explanations. Guests stood up, murmuring loudly. Someone dropped their glass. Someone cried in shock. And I felt everything inside me freeze. She got married. Already. Not here. Not with the groom waiting on the stage. But with someone else. Somewhere else. At a courthouse. My heartbeat roared in my ears. And then the man added, "She's coming here now. With her husband." Her husband. The word struck harder than I expected. Who was he? Was he the person on those late-night calls? Was he the reason she left the university the way she did? I didn't know. But I was about to find out. I looked at the entrance again. Any moment now. She would walk in. Not as the bride of the planned wedding, but as the wife of someone I had never met. And in that moment, I realized. The message she sent me wasn't just an invitation. It was the beginning of a storm I wasn't prepared for. The wedding hall had turned into a storm of confusion. Guests whispered in disbelief, parents argued, children cried without understanding why. The stage, decorated with golden flowers and soft white lights, looked painfully empty, like a celebration waiting for a bride who had already chosen another path. I sat frozen in my seat, unable to move, unable to think clearly. My mind replayed the messenger's words again and again. Era, she got married in the court this morning. And she's coming here now. I pressed my palms against my knees, trying to steady my breathing. I had imagined many things when she invited me. Her wearing the wedding dress, me clapping politely, smiling bitterly, then leaving and finally closing that chapter. But this was something no one could have predicted. Her family rushed around, frantically whispering, some crying, some angry. Her mother kept repeating, "Why would she do this? Why today? Why like this?" Her father yelled at every relative who dared approach him. And the guests? They were hungry for drama. Videos being recorded, gossip being whispered like sparks ready to start fires. Amid all that noise, something inside me grew calm. Strange, heavy calm, like the moment before a wave crashes. Minutes passed like slow hours. Then, suddenly, the hall went silent. Every head turned toward the entrance. Even children stopped moving. Because Era had arrived. She walked in slowly, step by step, wearing a simple red dress. Not the heavy bridal lehenga waiting for her in the dressing room. Her hair was tied loosely, a small set of earrings, light makeup, nothing extravagant. And yet, she looked more real, more raw, more honest than I had ever seen her. But she didn't enter alone. Beside her walked a man. Tall, confident, wearing a plain white kurta. His hand was wrapped around hers. Not possessively, not nervously, but with quiet certainty. The kind of hold that said, "I will stand with you no matter what." He wasn't familiar. He wasn't someone from her past that I knew. He wasn't the groom whose name was printed on the golden invitation card. He was the man she had chosen. Her real groom. Her husband. He held the marriage certificate in his other hand. A symbol of a decision that stunned an entire hall. Era's face was pale, exhausted, but not ashamed. She looked like someone who had fought a war in the morning and won, but lost her peace in the process. Every pair of eyes in that room followed her. Every whisper turned into judgment. But she kept walking, unmoved, toward the stage. Her parents rushed to her immediately. Her mother grabbed her arm. "Era, what have you done? You ruined everything. Do you even understand what people will say?" Her father pointed at the man beside her. "Who is he? Why did you embarrass us? You had a good proposal. A respectable family." Era didn't shout back. She didn't cry. She simply said, as softly as ever, "I married the person I love." Her mother gasped like someone had slapped her. Her father clenched his jaw. The man beside her, her husband, stepped forward respectfully and said, "Uncle, Auntie, please, we aren't here to disrespect you. We just wanted to inform you ourselves. We didn't want you to hear it from someone else." But they weren't ready to listen. Relatives surrounded them like bees, attacking with questions. When did this start? Did she run away? Was there an affair? Did the original groom know? How shameful. How bold. The hall that was meant for celebration now felt like a courtroom. And through the crowd, her eyes suddenly found mine. Just one glance. A small, trembling glance, full of guilt, apology, and a familiar softness. For a heartbeat, we were back in university, sitting in the library, her handing me tea without sugar, her laughing at my dry jokes, her saying goodbye without explanation. And now here we were. Her married. Me watching. Two stories diverging painfully. She walked toward me, leaving her husband to handle her furious family. The crowd parted slightly, curious to see what she would say to me. When she stopped in front of my seat, she whispered, "Zion, I didn't expect you to come this early." I forced a small smile. "You invited me. I thought I should." Her eyes glistened but didn't spill tears. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "For what?" I asked, though the answer was obvious. "For letting you think I might stay," she said. "For not telling you the truth back then. For leaving without explaining. For making you feel anything that caused you pain." I breathed slowly. "I always knew there was someone else," I replied. "Maybe not clearly, but I felt it." She looked surprised and sad. "He was the one on those calls," I continued. "Wasn't he?" She nodded, eyes falling to the floor. "We weren't together officially back then. Our families, they didn't agree. We were scared, young, confused. I left because I needed time to decide who I could live without. And I realized I couldn't live without him." Her honesty didn't stab me the way I expected. It felt clean. Painful, yes. But clean, the kind of truth that disinfects an old wound. "I hope you don't hate me," she said quietly. I shook my head. "No, I never could." For a moment, we simply stood there, surrounded by noise but connected by silence. Then her husband approached, placing a gentle hand on her back, as if reminding her she didn't have to face everything alone. He looked at me respectfully. "Thank you for being kind to her." I nodded. "Take care of her," I said. "She deserves someone who chooses her every single day." He smiled, not arrogantly, not triumphantly, but sincerely. "I will." Era's eyes softened. "I wanted you here today, not to hurt you, but because you were a part of my life that mattered." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "And now you're starting a life that I'm not a part of." She nodded slowly. "That's true, but I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye properly." "Goodbye." The word felt like a stone sinking deep inside me. She squeezed my hand gently, one last time. A simple gesture, heavy with years of unsaid things. And then she walked away, her husband's hand closing around hers with quiet certainty. I watched them leave the hall together. Two people against a world that didn't agree with their love. The girl I once loved was now someone else's wife. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't losing her today. I had lost her years ago. After Era and her husband walked out of the hall, the noise slowly died, but the heaviness remained, like dust after a storm. The wedding venue, once decorated with bright hopes and scented flowers, now felt hollow. People still whispered, but the drama was over, the real shock had passed. Her family was left behind in a whirlwind of humiliation and heartbreak. Her mother was crying silently in a corner, while her father paced angrily, making frantic calls to cancel catering and return gifts. Relatives tried offering fake sympathy. Be strong. Girls these days. How could she do this? But all of it sounded like noise. I stood near the back door, trying to process everything I had seen. My emotions felt tangled. Hurt, relief, closure, confusion. I didn't know what to feel, what to think, or where to go next. I just knew one thing. I needed air. I walked out into the open parking lot behind the hall. The evening sky was fading into deep blue, and the cool wind felt better than any words could. I leaned against my car and closed my eyes for a moment. Then I heard footsteps approaching. When I opened my eyes, I saw someone walking toward me. Not Era, not her family, not a friend. It was her husband. For a second, I froze. He stopped a few feet away, his expression calm but serious. He wasn't arrogant, wasn't defensive, just quietly confident, the kind of man who knew exactly what he wanted and wasn't afraid to fight for it. "Zion, right?" he asked gently. I nodded slowly. "Yes. I'm Ryan," he introduced himself. "Era must have mentioned me, at least a little?" I let out a breath. "Not really. I only understood today." He looked down for a moment, then back at me. "I wanted to speak to you. If you don't mind." I shrugged. "I guess a lot already happened today. What's one more conversation?" He gave a small, tired smile. "Fair enough." We both stood quietly for a minute. I expected him to say something awkward, like thank you for understanding or sorry for the confusion. But what he eventually said surprised me. You were important to her, he began. Still are in a different way. I frowned slightly. I think I was just a friend who misunderstood his place. Ryan shook his head. No, Era doesn't let people in easily. If she kept you close, it meant something. I didn't reply. There was no point arguing about what I meant to her. She had already chosen him. She told me about you, he continued softly. Not details, but she said you were kind, supportive, someone who made her feel safe during a difficult time. I swallowed, unsure how to react. I didn't know she had someone else, that she was struggling. Ryan leaned against the wall beside me. Era's family was forcing her into that arranged marriage. She tried saying no, but they didn't listen. They used emotional pressure, family honor, future security, everything to break her. His voice tightened slightly. When she left you all after graduation, she didn't leave because she wanted to. She left because her family found out about us and threatened to cut her off completely. They demanded she end all distractions. I stared at him, stunned. Distractions. Was that what they thought of me? Of her dreams? Of her life? Why didn't she tell me? I whispered. She didn't want to pull you into her chaos, he replied. And she knew, if she talked to you, she wouldn't be able to walk away. She respects you too much to hurt you like that. The explanation hit deeper than anything else today. It made sense. Painfully, perfectly sense. So you two eloped? I asked. Ryan nodded. This morning. It wasn't planned. But last night, her family told her she would marry the room-decorated groom today, no questions allowed. She panicked. She called me. We decided to run before she lost her freedom forever. He rubbed his forehead tiredly. We knew the consequences. But we also knew we couldn't lose each other again. I let out a long breath. That's a lot. He nodded. I didn't come here to justify anything. I came to thank you. Thank me? I asked, confused. Era said you were the only person who ever treated her with genuine sincerity. No expectations, no pressure. She said if anyone deserved the truth someday, it was you. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I had imagined everything: jealousy, anger, explanations, resentment. But this unexpected conversation with the man she chose. This honest gratitude. It felt strangely grounding. I'm not going to pretend this doesn't hurt, I said quietly. But I'm glad she found someone who fights for her. Ryan met my eyes. And I promise you, I'll never stop fighting for her. There was no arrogance, no competition, just sincerity. The kind that was impossible to hate. He extended his hand. I hope someday, when things settle, you can be at peace with all this. I looked at his hand for a moment, then shook it firmly. I already am, I said. Or at least, I'm getting there. We stood there silently. Two men bound by the same woman, but in completely different ways. He loved her. I accepted that. I had loved her too, but mine was the quiet kind, meant to be let go. After a moment, Ryan said, She's waiting in the car. She wanted to say more to you, but I told her she already said enough. Her chapter with you isn't ending badly, Zion. It's ending honestly. I nodded. Take care of her. He smiled softly. Always. With that, he turned and walked away toward a white car parked at the far end. Through the window, I saw Era sitting in the passenger seat, looking straight ahead, trying to hold herself together. She didn't turn. She didn't wave. And she didn't need to. Because sometimes the biggest goodbyes happen in silence. As their car drove away, the parking lot felt emptier, but my chest felt lighter. Almost as if a weight I carried for years had finally been set down. I whispered to the fading tail lights. Goodbye, Era. Be happy. It was a conversation I never expected. With the man she married. But the closure I desperately needed. Little did I know. Another chapter was waiting for me. One that would change everything again. The night after Era's wedding was the longest night of my life. I didn't sleep, not even for a minute. Whenever I closed my eyes, the image of her standing beside Ryan came back, her hands trembling, her eyes refusing to look at mine, her smile forced yet painfully beautiful. It was the kind of sight that stays in your mind like a wound you don't know how to treat. I sat in my room, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly above me, feeling the weight of 1,000 thoughts pressing against my chest. For years, I believed that no matter where she went, no matter what decisions she made, somehow our paths would collide again. Maybe as lovers, maybe as strangers, but at least aligned. But tonight, I finally understood something I had been avoiding for too long. She was never meant to stay. Not because she didn't care. Not because she never valued me. But because she had already chosen her path long before I ever gathered the courage to speak my heart. And I had been walking beside her, hoping life would change direction on its own. Around 3 a.m., I stepped outside my apartment to breathe. The cold wind hit my face, sharp and honest. It reminded me of who I was before I met her, and who I needed to become now. I walked down the empty street, the city lights blurring into soft halos, like the world was mourning with me. My chest felt lighter than before, not because the pain was gone, but because I had finally admitted the truth to myself. Love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes, love means stepping back and letting someone else have the place you wished was yours. But admitting wasn't enough. The memories were everywhere. My phone gallery filled with photos from university, her saved voice notes, the text messages where she used to share her fears, her goals, her late-night thoughts. Every detail felt like a thread pulling me backward. I unlocked my phone and opened our chat. I didn't want to delete anything. I wasn't ready. But I scrolled all the way up to the first message she ever sent me. "Do you have the class notes?" Such a small sentence, yet it started years of connection. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it felt distant, like a life that no longer belonged to me. Around sunrise, I decided to visit the small lake near the old university campus, the one we used to sit beside after classes. Era never liked crowded places. She preferred quiet spaces where she could hear her thoughts breathe, as she always said. I think that's one of the reasons I loved her. She found beauty in silence, something I never knew how to appreciate before. When I reached the lake, the water was calm, mirroring the sky. I sat on the same bench where we once talked about our futures that had no idea what pain awaited them. I closed my eyes and let the wind pass over me. For the first time in years, I tried to picture a life without Era in it. Not a life where I waited. Not a life where I hoped. But a life where I simply moved forward. It was difficult. My heart resisted. Memories rose like waves, pulling me under. The way she laughed when she was nervous. The way she tied her hair when she studied. The way she whispered, "I hope you never leave," on the night before she disappeared from my life for 2 years. Those words hurt the most because she didn't keep them. And maybe she never promised to. Maybe that was just her fear talking, not her heart. I sat there for almost an hour, letting each memory surface, letting each one finally have the goodbye it deserved. As the sun climbed higher, I heard footsteps behind me. For a moment, a foolish thought crossed my mind. What if it was Era? What if she came to explain everything I still didn't understand? But when I turned, it was a stranger. A quiet laugh escaped me. I wasn't expecting her. Not anymore. Not after yesterday. The stranger nodded politely as he walked past, and I realized something small yet important. Life was still happening around me. The world hadn't stopped because I was hurting. Maybe that was its way of telling me that I didn't have to stop either. That morning, I made a decision. Not dramatic, not emotional, just honest. I would let Era go. Not because she chose someone else. Not because she hurt me. But because holding on to someone who belongs to another future is the slowest way to destroy yourself. Letting go didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean erasing love like chalk on a board. It simply meant accepting reality without bitterness. I took a deep breath, stood up, and walked away from the lake. Each step felt unfamiliar, like I was learning how to walk again. But each step also felt strangely freeing. On my way back home, I passed a flower shop. The smell of fresh roses filled the air, reminding me of the bouquet I had brought for Era once. How she smiled like the world had given her something she didn't deserve. Without thinking, I bought a single white rose. Not for her. For me. A symbol of peace. A reminder that healing starts with small, gentle choices. Back at home, I placed the rose in a glass of water and sat on my bed. My phone buzzed with notifications, friends asking about the wedding, colleagues reminding me about deadlines. Life pulling me forward. And maybe for the first time in years, I was ready to move with it. I whispered to the empty room. "Goodbye, Era. Thank you for everything you were, and everything you couldn't be." That was the moment I finally understood. Letting go isn't losing. Letting go is choosing yourself. And sometimes that is the strongest kind of love. A month passed after Era's wedding, 30 quiet days of rebuilding myself, piece by piece. Life was slowly becoming normal again, or at least something close to it. I started sleeping better, eating on time, and meeting people without feeling the need to hide behind a fake smile. The pain didn't vanish, but it softened, turning into a distant ache instead of a fresh wound. Sometimes I wondered how she was doing. Other times, I stopped myself. Why reopen a chapter one had already closed? What mattered was that I was learning to live again, not as the person who waited for Era, but as the person who discovered himself after losing her. One Sunday morning, I decided to visit a new cafe near my office. I didn't want to go to any place tied to old memories. It felt like a test. If I could enjoy a cup of coffee alone, maybe I truly was healing. The cafe was quiet, filled with warm lights and soft instrumental music. I ordered a caramel latte and sat near the window. For a while, I simply watched people walking by. Parents with children, couples laughing, students rushing, strangers living their own stories. Everyone had a destination. Everyone had a purpose. I stared at the steam rising from my cup and whispered to myself, "You're okay now." And for the first time, I believed it. But just as I took the first sip, the cafe door chimed. Someone walked in, someone I recognized instantly. Era. My heart didn't leap. It didn't break. It simply paused, like a quiet breath held between two moments. She looked different, tired but calm, dressed simply, her hair tied in a loose bun. She scanned the cafe, and when her eyes landed on me, she froze. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wasn't prepared for this meeting. I didn't move. I didn't look away. I was no longer the boy who crumbled in front of her. I had changed, but seeing her again reminded me how far I had come. She walked toward me slowly, unsure, almost nervous. When she reached my table, she whispered, "Zion, can I sit?" I nodded. She sat across from me, folding her hands together like she was trying to gather courage. For a moment, silence stretched between us. Not the comfortable silence we once shared. This one was strange, fragile, carrying the weight of everything left unsaid. Finally, she spoke. "I know I shouldn't be here. I know I shouldn't disturb your life. But I needed to talk to you." I took a quiet breath. "Why now, Era?" Her eyes lowered, pain flickering in them. "Because everything feels wrong," she whispered. "My marriage, my choices, the way I left you behind." I watched her carefully, searching for honesty, for intention, for something real. "Are you unhappy?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Her throat tightened before she said, "I'm not unhappy, but I'm not the person I hoped I'd be. And I hurt you, more than I ever admitted." Her voice cracked slightly. "You were there for me when no one else was. You were the safest part of my life. And when I came back, I knew I had already broken something I could never fix." I leaned back in my chair, strangely calm. "Era," I said gently, "you didn't owe me a future. You owed yourself honesty. That's all." Her eyes glistened. "But I wasn't honest. Not with you. Not with myself." I waited. She continued, voice trembling. "When I saw you at the wedding, I realized something. You were the only person who ever looked at me like I mattered without expecting anything in return." I didn't flinch. Once, those words would have destroyed me with longing. Now, they only felt like memories. "Era," I said softly, "you made your choice. And I made mine. I chose to let go." Tears gathered in her lashes. "I know. I could feel it that day. You didn't fight. You didn't ask me to stay. Because you weren't mine to hold," I replied. "You belonged to your own life. And I needed to belong to mine." She exhaled shakily, as if she had been carrying a truth for too long. Then she said the words I never expected to hear. "Zion, if I had chosen you, would you have married me?" The question hit like a forgotten wound. Once I would have said yes without thinking. But now, the answer wasn't simple. I looked at her, really looked at her. "Era," I said quietly, "I would have loved you with everything I had. But that doesn't mean we were meant to be." She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. "You've changed," she whispered. "Yes," I replied. "And so have you." She nodded, wiping her tears. "I guess. I just needed to hear that you don't hate me." I shook my head softly. "I don't hate you. I never will. But I don't belong in your story anymore. I'm finally writing my own." Era smiled weakly, pain and acceptance blending together. "I hope you find someone who loves you the way you deserve," she whispered. "I hope you find peace with your choices," I replied. We sat silently for a moment. Two people connected by history, separated by destiny. Then she stood up, hesitating for only a second before saying, "Goodbye, Zion. Goodbye, Era." She walked away, each step quieter than the last. I didn't stop her. I didn't look back. When the cafe door closed behind her, I felt something unexpected, relief. Not because she was gone, but because I finally understood. Some stories don't end with love. Some stories end with clarity. And that is enough. I finished my coffee, stood up, and stepped outside. The world looked brighter, the air lighter, my heart quieter. And for the first time since losing her, I felt something new forming inside me. Hope. Not for the past. Not for what could have been. But for everything waiting beyond the horizon. This was my unexpected ending. Not getting the love I wanted, but becoming the person I needed to be. And sometimes, that is the best ending of all.